Do you crank out content, get decent shares, likes, and website traffic, but you're not generating any leads or sales? Well, it's probably because you're putting out good content, but you're not hitting the right psychological triggers that it requires someone to go through on their journey to becoming an actual paying customer for you. So, in this episode, Daniel Daines-Hutt joins us to give you the breakdown of the exact playbook he uses step by step for creating content that not only gets a ton of traffic, likes, and shares, but also converts people into leads and sales. So if you're ready to start turning your content into a sales machine, get your notebook ready and watch through this full episode with Daniel. I'm Todd from zeotag.com, and without further ado, let's get this show on the road. All right, Daniel, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick and give us some context around, who you are and what you do.
Cool. So my name is Daniel Daines-Hutt. I'm an Englishman living in New Zealand. So Rugby World Cup is on right now, and England play New Zealand this weekend.
Ah, nice.
It's very tense. I'm a direct response marketer, kind of like by trade, which is, if people don't know, you run adverts, you do the math, you figure out how to make it profitable, psychology and things like that. And I write about that, and ironically, like my writing about this has gone crazy. So I teach people how to actually write and use psychology to get results. So rather than just kind of like pushing out content all the time, let's figure out how we can actually get someone to do something. Let's measure that action. Let's get more of that action. So that's the short term.
Yeah. And we've been friends for a while. You're being humble because you've been, and most recently featured on you were just on like 20-something podcasts in the last couple months. You've had the top content on inbound.org, growthhackers.com, all that kind of stuff as voted by the communities. You've got thousands and thousands of shares and mentions and all that kind of stuff. And, your ROI is like in the 22x level, something like that. So you're crushing it. And, we come from that same school of direct response content marketing. And what I'm really excited about today is, for our audience of people who have been on that content hamster wheel, or they've been creating videos and they're publishing videos, but maybe they do well, short term, but they're not putting that cohesive plan together. What I want to have you break down today, which is also broken down in your new book, if you want to promote that, which is awesome, and I highly recommend everybody get it. I started it the other day, and this is the playbook that I would have written myself if I had the time and energy that he put into it. So let's break down when we're planning out content and video content specifically, how do we make sure that we're making content that's going to not just attract people, but hit those proper psychological triggers that get people engaged and get them want to buy from you, right? So why don't you give kind of an outline of what that looks like, and then maybe we can dive in one step at a time.
So obviously when someone goes from being not even knowing you to becoming a customer, there's different stages on that journey. And there's different archetypes or different kind of stories and plot beats at different points in that journey that'll do well. So kind of like if you're trying to talk to someone who's at the very start, you might have something that's very problem focused so they can figure out what it is their pain actually is and what's causing it. Towards the end, you might be talking to someone that's very kind of building trust. So it depends what video or piece of content you're going to create on how you're going to kind of structure it. So I'm a massive nerd for this kind of stuff. You messaged me to say you're reading the book, and it's like I was inside your head. Yeah. These are the exact things that you're doing, which I was really happy about. Yeah. So if we look at the psychology of why people do things and how to get them to take action, I don't want to nerd out too much. We work on a three-brain system. So our brain over time has evolved, which is rather than totally changing and improving, we've added parts on. We just kind of glued a bit on and then glued a bit on. I had this amazing fact the other day. So do you know why rocket ships are a certain size? Like why NASA sends ships into space? No. It's because they have to be so big so they can fit on trains. But then train tracks are only so big because they were based off of horse and cart wheels. How wide a horse and cart was. Yeah. So we're sending people into space based off of how big a horse and cart was. Yeah, it's crazy. Got this knock-on effect. No one's gone back and changed these things. Right. Our brain is kind of similar in that we started off very basic with this lizard brain that's looking out for danger and pain and pleasure and things like this. Then we added on the midbrain, which is kind of like learning from experience, different mental models and things like that, so we can start to see pattern recognition. It's why we saw shapes in the stars and stuff. Finally, we got the neocortex, which is like the logical thing. When we're trying to sell, usually we're trying to talk to people at their neocortex. We assume everyone is at the same point, but they're not. The brain filters that information for each stage. So if you need to speak to someone, you have to speak to their lizard brain first to get their attention. Then you have to go through their mental models and experience. Then you can talk to the logic. So if we think of that, that's almost like the start of the story is the pain and the problem, past their previous experience. Then we can talk to them about it logically. As I said, I'm fighting a bit of a cold today. So almost every piece of content we create will be designed for that. That's why the headline is so important. It's why like the introduction, especially on a video, where you've got to get those first few seconds. People are, their brains are on autopilot, just trying to see if these boxes are ticked before they then pay more attention, because they're trying to save energy.
Yeah.
So it's not difficult to do that. It's just understanding that process of how we communicate and then understanding your audience, doing the research and finding out what is their pain, what's the language that they use for that, what experience do they have, what mental models do this particular audience have, because some people move away from pain, other people move towards pleasure. Yeah. So you have to know that in your audience and who you're trying to speak to, because otherwise it won't resonate. Just things like that, really. And then you can plot it all out. In the book, let's see if I can find it, we actually have like structures of different archetypes.
I can't see on the camera here if you're showing it. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, that's right. You got the doodles. I love that.
Just ideas of like, so you got to hit this thing first, then the pain, and then you got to come up with the obstacle, because that's talking to that lizard brain, and then you've got to give proof and context, which is now talking to the experience, that midbrain. Then you're going to go into the overview of how much effort it is. Then you move it through. So every book, every film, every story, they all follow this process. It's just knowing what plot beats to change based on who your audience is and where they are on that journey.
Yeah.
To move them along. But yeah, I'm sorry, I did nerd out a little bit.
That's all right. So what we need to do is we need to start our story, our videos, our content with something that's speaking to pain points and problems as the audience identifies them for themselves, right? That's kind of sums up what we need to do and how we start it, right? So once we do that, how long does the content need to be? I know you like the long form content, so when we're talking about this stuff, is that something in a video that takes is that like the first 30 seconds, or is that a 5-minute segment? How long should that kind of topic be talked about and discussed before moving on to the next section?
So in writing, we use what's called a before-after bridge. So what their life is like before, what it could be like after, and the bridge of how to get there. Nowadays, I find with people's short attention span, you almost have to kind of loop that a couple of times.
Yeah.
So you have like in a video, you want to get into like a really quick BAB sequence to hook them so that they pay attention. And then you elaborate on that with another one. So it's a little bit more, and then you can finally get into it. So it's got to be like, hey, do you want to do this, but you don't want that? Well, I'm going to show you how. And that's how fast it's got to be in a video, almost in blog content as well. And then we're elaborating on it even further. You want to do this because it has X, Y, Z, and you don't want that because of A, B, C. Well, this does this, and it has these ancillary benefits. That's almost like the proof and context section that we go into, because so now we're stacking it. Yeah. So it's like it's still part of the intro, really, because at this point, you're just trying to get them involved enough to carry on.
Yeah.
The goal of content is the one line is to pull them down, to read the next line. In video, it's the same. It's to get them to listen to the next thing and the next thing.
Yep.
Ooh, I'm struggling today. Apologies.
That's all right.
So you're trying to just keep hooking them in. So the first BAB is basically, do you have this pain? Do you want this thing? Here's how to remove it. But then you're stacking benefits and you're stacking pain points, because people only do something if the pain of inaction is more painful.
Yeah.
You basically got to stack the pain so they do the thing, otherwise they'll live with it for years and years and years.
Right.
So and that's what we're trying to do.
And I think a big thing that businesses overlook when it comes to this, like the pain of inaction, is that I would think, and I'm sure there's studies about it, but the main competition for any person in sales is actually doing nothing. It's not a competitive company or product, but it's rather the person just not doing anything about it.
Yeah, totally. It's even kind of like overwhelm of choice. If you give someone too many choices, then the general option they pick is to do none of them. Yeah. So that's why you're constantly fighting with this perception of effort of how much to do something. When we edit content and lay it out, the way we structure content, we do it a certain way to change people's perception, so it doesn't feel like it's a lot of effort to start reading.
Yeah.
In video, you don't have that barrier.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I had started working on a couple years ago was every blog post, no matter what, starts off a picture on half the column and then short text on the left, only so that the text line is shorter for people to skim and it doesn't seem as overwhelming, and to always make sure that the first 3, 4, 5 lines are single lines, so then it gets them into a reading momentum. And I think you can start videos the same way. If you tell that before and after story and identify their problems early on with punchier, making sure that you're concise with how you speak to that stuff, so that they're like, yes, that's me. Yes, I have that problem. Yes, I want that outcome. Okay, you have me hooked in. And then we get to that second part where you said the social proof and kind of stacking the benefits and all that kind of stuff. And now we're building that credibility with the audience. So they're paying attention because they want the outcome. Then they're saying, okay, yes, this is someone I should be listening to, and I believe what they're going to say, right? This is where we get them to like buy into actually what we're going to tell them, right? And so now where do we take them after we've identified their problem, showed them some social proof, and built our credibility? What's the next piece that has to come into it?
You're about to take them on a journey of something that they have to do or somewhere they have to go. It's the same in like story and film.
Yeah.
Usually what I like to do is I give them a quick mile-high overview of the steps. And it could be that it's this massive grand journey. Frodo's got to take the ring to Mordor kind of thing. There's a heap of stuff that they've got to do, but in reality, it's just one step. They've got to go take the ring, or they've got to go south for like 500K, and then they got to go east for 200K, and then they drop it in.
Yeah.
You do this because it makes it less overwhelming. They can just see like, oh, there's 3 things, and I can just concentrate on those 3 things. And then you can get into the actual steps. Whereas if you just started to break it all down, all right, you got to put on your shoes, you got to go out the door, you got to walk down there, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's just too much right away, and it's that perception of effort, right, where they want to do nothing.
Right.
So you have to sell them on the idea of you've just got to do these 3 things. If you can do those 3 things, you're going to be fine. It's the same in business and stuff, right? As long as you can hit X amount of traffic, then you'll get X amount of revenue, and then there's so many steps to having a business. But you're like, as long as I can just do these 3, and so we get up every day and we do these things, because we're sold on just those 3 ideas.
Right.
So that's what you have to do with content, video, written, whatever, just to get that buy-in. Mm-hmm. So they're like, oh, okay, I can see that there is work, but in reality it's just these 3 things. I'm going to commit to that. Yeah. And once we can get some kind of small self-commitment, they're more likely to stick it out and follow through and do those things, especially if we can connect with ideals that they already have. So rather than just saying, it's just 3 steps and at the end of it you'll have more money, but it could be you'll have more money, but it means more free time with your family, less stress, less anxiety, actually connecting with the reasons behind it. Yeah. And then you can take them on that path, because now they're like, well, it's only 3 things, and if I do it, my family and kids are going to love me because I get to spend every weekend with them,
Yeah.
So that's how you get that buy-in.
Yeah, and that's understanding the customer and what the customer's why is, right? Like, yes, I want more money, but why do you want more money? And like you said, so once you tie that, and now we're really being able to get their attention with what they think they want and need, and now we start touching them on a deeper level, and that's the importance of knowing your audience and knowing why they want those things, right? Because then you can tie it into that second, third layer of desire and outcome. So now we've brought them. Now, if you're a person who is more getting away from pain, we've talked to you about your pain points and getting away from them. And if you're driven more by desire, now we're tying into your deeper why and that desire. So now we're hitting them from both angles, so that we make sure whichever personality type we're going after, we have a little snippet of message that will resonate with them and move them forward, right?
Yeah, man, totally.
And so, something recently I've been paying attention to a lot is the people who talk about, a lot of people create great content that's very valuable and helpful for their audience, which I 100% agree with. But the problem is how-to content is not motivating enough to help someone have a mental paradigm shift that gets them to take action and buy from you, or to take the action and actually, even if how many how-to videos or ebooks are people reading and they don't take the next action, right? So I think in addition to showing them, that's the importance of this psychological triggers and stuff, is that we don't want to just give them information. We want them to receive the information and then actually implement it and take action, whether that action is using the products or taking action and buying from us. Like whatever that action is, there needs to be the fire lit under them so that they actually move forward and take action, not just consume content. And I think that's the brilliance around the kind of strategy that you put together here with it. So we've got to this point here, right? So now we're touching on their deeper desires and what's the next step in the journey and sections of content that we need to be creating.
Well, to finish off the content, you've got them excited or in pain and they want to do something. And so then you show them how to do something. And so then you can break down the steps of what you need to do or what you're going to show them. And it's exactly like you said, now they've got an emotional component to it that means they'll follow through.
Yeah.
So every time you can get someone to self-commit, either to a choice or to how they perceive themselves, their own identity, they're almost like 40% more likely to take a bigger action.
Yeah.
And so if you can get them to keep saying yes to take these smaller actions, they're better off. So like getting someone to go to a gym can be a massive thing if you don't go, but like just telling them to like have their gym gear at the end of the bed and put it on first thing when you wake up, that's this self-commitment. It's this small step, and then you move them along. So basically that's all it is after that until you get to the conclusion or the call to action, where you have to kind of recap all that pleasure and pain. Because here's the thing. We have this content. We get them excited. We get them to feel the pain, to see the problem. We move them forwards. A lot of people can feel like it's solved just by knowing the thing.
Right.
They haven't taken any action. They haven't done anything. But 99% of people will be like, oh, brilliant. I know all this stuff now. I'm fine. And a lot of people will buy programs or books and courses and stuff just because of that and then take no action. They call it shelf help, you know? Or they'll buy workout gear and never go and things like that. So you have to then kind of recap that pain and remind them, you know all this stuff. You've seen how the story can end, but you are still at the start here, and you have to take that one next step. Because if you can do that, your conversions will be huge. You know?
Yeah.
Like our standard opt-in rate is like 17%, and it goes up to like 85%, which is massive in our industry. And it's because of that, because we're using these direct response principles to get them to do something. You know?
Yeah.
Put it into your content, and your content's way more effective now.
Right. And so, once we've got there, now we're recapping that pain, like the pain of inaction. Like let's reset them into the like, you don't want to feel this way again, or worse, like down the road, if you continue here, it's not going to be good. You don't want to be there. So now, how do we tie in and like actually present a call to action? Like what kind of message? Like how do you frame that message, and what are the right ways to say or the wrong ways to say, what it is to get someone to take that next step?
So usually I will just, because we do all of our audience research, we know what their pain points are and the language they use and things. We know about, we know about desires and things. It's just recapping it. So I'll come to the end, and usually it's like, oh, okay, well, now you've seen this. The choice is to take action on it or don't. Because remember, and I just kind of like remind them of where they still are. Yes, they're empowered and they can go do this thing, but they will only see the result if they go do the thing, And so that's how you push them ahead, because we all need that little kick in the ass to go do something, right?
Yep.
So that's all it is, really. You never want to place blame on people directly.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, they fight back and they push back. And even though you might be giving them the right thing, it's great to place blame somewhere, but be on their side. Oh, the reason you haven't done this is because everyone else is teaching you, but you need to go to a gym and change your diet and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And you can't do it. It's changing too many things at once. Instead, if you just put the shoes at the end of your bed and just make sure you put them on for the next 3 days, by day 4, I guarantee you'll go to a gym. And by day 7, you'll have been 3 times and you'll feel great. And so it's just, but if you try and do too much, you're just going to feel in that same like shame spiral of blah, 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 blah. Just recapping where they are and just giving them that small action. But it's so important to give them an action, because if you don't, a lot of people do this. They get their audience so excited to do something, and then they never give them an action to take. So what do? They then Google how to take that action, find your competitor, and go take action with them instead.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. You get them so excited to do something, and then they just don't do it. Frustrates me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so, let's talk about like what are those proper next actions at the next step, because what I see, like, majority of websites out there that are producing content, people putting out videos on their site, they have a contact form, or like put out a brilliant video that goes through all these steps, gets them ready to take action, and then it says, contact, talk to a sales rep, or buy the product. And like, depending on the price point of the product, most of the time that's not the right next step, right? So where I think businesses and content publishers need to be aware is that they're using micro commitments and stepping stones through the customer journey, where you're not asking the same way when we run ads to a cold audience who doesn't know us yet. We want to engage with them. We want them to get engaged first, and the job of that ad is to get them to consume the ad and then click to the website. That's the simple job, right? I like to say we don't sell to strangers in our ads. No. And so we get them over. Now they're on the website, and the job of the website is like, let's get them to watch this video, read this blog post. Now at the end, like, what's the proper next step at that point that's not too big of a leap for someone?
We use a method called the hyper-specific next step offer. It's kind of like a lead magnet or a content upgrade.
Yep.
And we'll use this even if the person is already a subscriber. Because every time they subscribe, every time they opt in, they're saying yes, and we're stacking that yes. So we're building reciprocity for a bigger ask in the future. Mm-hmm. So most of my readers will opt in maybe 5 or 6 times to different pieces of content before we ever make a product offer. Mainly because we're moving them towards that offer and preparing them, getting them ready for it. The beauty of it as well is it means that every piece of content you've got is then converting people. It's a change in state. And it can be something super simple. So it could be, like a checklist or a behind-the-scenes video. It doesn't matter what it is. It just has to be unique to the thing, and it has to be the next thing they want to take. So if it was a fitness plan, it would be how to go across and, how to do this. Here's 5 things that are going to make the biggest difference. Mm-hmm. We don't use it everywhere. We just use it there because if it's specific, we just got them all excited to take an action, then we give them the next logical thing they want to take. They're going to do it. If we give them something vague, or it's too much effort, or it's like contact a salesperson, we're not ready for that yet. It's not what they want. And so that's why you see such a huge drop.
Yeah.
Whereas if you give them the small thing and then you give them the next thing, now they're going to contact a salesperson without you even asking. They're going to get so excited and move forwards on that journey. And what you're doing is you're filling your pipeline, but you're also getting them ready for your offer, rather than just trying to cold convert someone who's not ready and doesn't understand all the things that you do or how you sell it. Something like that.
Yeah. So what does the follow-up look like then? So they sign up for this hyper-specific next step offer, right? I love that. They're stacking the yes. We're getting these micro commitments. It's creating that psychological momentum to say yes and yes and yes. We're training them and pre-framing them to take that next step and the next step and the next step. So they opt in. And then what happens? Is it they get something and then an offer? Are you looping back in the same, those same before and after bridges over time and consistently sending offer messages? Or do you build up education and nurture before presenting? How do you look at the follow-up sequence?
It depends what piece of content it is and where they are in the funnel. Like you just said, pre-framing, for people who don't know, there's different types of salespeople. You got someone who will make an offer, and not everyone does that. It's madness. Then you have standards like cold call people who reframe objections, Oh, I don't want that. Why not? Because of this, this, and this. Oh, actually, it solves those things.
Yeah.
It's better, but it's not great because you're trying to change people's mind afterwards. Pre-framing is where you are actually setting the stage and setting the problems and solutions so that when you make your offer, it aligns perfectly.
Yep.
There's different stages of that pre-frame. You have to understand, and it's almost like a BAB where you have to set the problem so they can understand it. When you have to take them on the journey so that they actually start taking some action to gain momentum. And when you give them some small victories so that they feel they can do the whole thing. Basically, if we break it down, simplify it. Yep. And so usually what will happen is they read that first piece, which, because it's a piece of content people will link to and you can run ads to it and all stuff like that. They opt in, however many days later we send them the next piece. They read that, they opt in, however many days, and we just keep moving them towards, and what we're doing is we're getting them ready for that offer.
Yeah.
The length of content and things that you have to have varies on how expensive the offer is because you have to really get them ready and understand.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's no reason why you couldn't do it with a low ticket item because it doesn't cost you anything once these assets are created.
Right.
And they're doing the job. Also, we talked at the start about lizard brain, midbrain, neocortex. Mm-hmm. When you're trying to convert someone straight away on a sales page, and you can do it, there's good copywriters out there, you take them on the whole journey all the way through the page, and you're doing that, the before, the after, the bridge, and giving them a call to action to make a decision at the bottom. When you do that, they're using previous experience and mental models to make a choice. Yes, you've just brought up all these points and they are agreeing with them, but now they're making a decision. Usually it's off stuff that's happened years ago. Whereas if you stagger this out and you give them a gap in between, they're actually changing their experience and mental model. So this really is a problem and they really believe it, and all week it's all they're thinking about. Then you're moving them to the next step and the next step. So when you make that offer, suddenly it makes total sense because they're yes, this is a major problem. It's been on my mind all week.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just do it in one go, for a low ticket item, it can convert, but you're better off. It's almost like onboarding someone to get them ready to understand why it is they should buy what you sell.
Yeah.
So we can get into real kind of nerdiness about it all.
Yeah, and what I like about continuously bringing in the content and having your content created to be helpful and engaging, but also making sure that they match on these different psychological aspects is because with today's world of constant distractions, the odds that someone who visits your page and watches a 30-minute video straight through are very slim. Or what happens is, and what I do, is I'll have a video on my second monitor on a tab that's not even visible on my screen, and the audio is running in the background and I'm not really paying attention to it. And so, that's also why using something like a free Geotag player for your videos makes it great because it takes a long form video of however long it is and it automatically creates an actionable table of content so the actual viewer can look and see, oh, this is where they're talking about the problem, that's what I want to see, or oh, here's the benefits, I need to see these benefits, or here's the outcome I'm looking for. And they can actually engage with the video and they'll actually be paying attention more while they're watching the video, and when they're paying attention they're going to be consuming as opposed to passively consuming, or they'll actively be consuming instead of passively, which is a major problem today. And then I think being able to take all those different snippets and repurpose them. We did an interview with Shayna from repurposehouse.com, and she helps people with this too, where you take snippets of long form content and you put them out onto all your channels and you re-promote them over time. And I like to put them into ad sets as well so that we're reaching everybody after they visited our site, and we're just touching them with the little talking points of each step of this psychological journey that they're going on. And it just continues to stack the value that we're offering. It continues to build up that pain that they have. It builds up the gap between where they are and where they want to be. It creates that desire and demand generation so that they will take action. And we're just constantly staying in front of them between, retargeting them with snippets from the long form content, dripping out emails that touch on each one of these points. And I think a big thing too is telling stories that get the spirit of the message we're talking about, because people love to consume stories. And so knowing that, hey, we're not just going to say, hey, here's your problem, here's our product, you should buy it, but rather telling it in a story type of way will grip people and have a little bit more entertainment to it, so that they're paying attention and actually actively consuming, which will motivate them to ultimately take action.
That's the thing, man, because we can even, I think most websites only convert like 2% of their traffic into a customer.
Yep.
Sorry, my cat's at the window just banging to come in. My girlfriend's going to go get him now. I'm really sorry.
That's all right. So, we can't hear him.
He's just there padding away next to me. So only 2% of people usually buy. And if we think about that, it's because usually they don't get as far as your offer, or they're not ready for the offer, or there's no emotional connection. They don't really. The people who are buying are connecting all the dots on their own.
Yeah.
And like the pain is so real for these people that when you make the offer, they're just like, yes. But they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us. Yeah. Whereas if we do this and if we include this emotional connection, we can take someone who has the problem and can be an ideal customer and help move them towards the thing, because right now they might not even know you exist or what your solution is. They might not even know what your problem is. Right. So you can create that connection. And I think that's so vital. There's another book that came out. I think it's called Story Brand. In fact, like once it's on your mind, you see all these things coming up, right? Yeah, there you go, right? So like it's a bestseller right now. Same kind of thing, like creating a narrative to move people along, because when we had that midbrain and those mental models, we tell stories because it's how we remember, it's how we connect, it's how we actually connect things, and it's how like they've done neuroscience studies of where people's memory, they can remember things when there is an emotional connection, even stuff where it's like just random data facts and things like that. Yeah. Stuff that they wouldn't care about, but by creating a narrative around it, it keeps them connected, and that's how you move them along.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's the reason why guys are able to remember all these sports statistics, because they're tied to games that they watched and felt emotionally connected, but they can't remember, the third date that they had with their girlfriend or whatever, right? It's the emotional connection to the data.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy. We're very weird creatures.
Yeah, we are. The more that I study it, the weirder and crazier it is, and I'm like, man, this is, we'll never have a shortage of stuff to study when it comes to the human brain and psychology. That's for sure. So this has been great. So you have a book. Where can people find your book?
It's on Amazon. You can get it on our website as well. So if you go to ampmycontent/direct response copywriting, there's a page on there which will actually show you it all. But you can just get it off Amazon as well. It is a beast. It is 475 pages. Oof. Yeah. In fairness, we made it large so that people can add notes and things, and so you can see all the images. So it almost works like an old school textbook.
Nice, yeah.
So you can actually work from it, because there's nothing worse than like those smaller books where it's got all that information. You can't even read the stuff that are in the screenshots and stuff.
Yeah. I only have the Kindle version now, so I gotta order my physical copy for sure.
It's crazy how many people are doing that. They're messaging me and they're saying this is so helpful. And I know you hear that all the time on podcasts and things like this where people are like pitching stuff. But like, I've never had more emails about a piece of content that I've created than this book. I'm so excited because it was a massive, like, I was so nervous to put it out. I don't know why. I create content all the time. I got a blog post that is longer than this on paid ads, right? And yet I'm just like, putting it out there in the world. It's weird, right? It was so weird.
Yeah, and I'll say for anybody watching this, when we put it out right away, the Kindle version is free as of today. I don't know how long you're going to be running that for, but
it's ended now. But
okay,
we dropped the price. It's only like $4.99 for the Kindle version.
Yeah. I paid for it because I like to support. I like to support my friends like that, but and I'll definitely be buying the physical copy too. But obviously, I know you got a bookshelf that looks like mine. What are a couple other books that you'd recommend people check out if they want to dive deeper into this stuff?
All right, so Scientific Advertising, which is kind of like a primer on direct response, which you can get super cheap right now on Kindle as well. And we even mentioned that in the book. I do have a blog post of all of these, but they're all from like a retargeting perspective.
Yeah.
I might even have to come back to you with a list of them because there's so many, seriously.
Well, we'll put a link over to
aspects.
we'll put a link over to that blog post of yours in our show notes as well. And I'll say for anybody, it is super academic and thick, but it's the good old, it's the Eugene Schwartz breakthrough advertising. It is very expensive compared to other books, but definitely worth it. And it does go through a lot of the stuff that we talked about today, and really the fundamentals of really the origins before they were called content strategy or customer journey, but all that great stuff that has become the basis for what people are talking about today, like me and you. Like, I know we both are really sitting on the shoulders of giants when it comes to that stuff. So but yeah, everybody make sure you check out his book on Amazon. Check out his website at Amp My Content, and I promise you that you will be retargeted so you won't forget him once you visit. And Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. This was super valuable, really practical breakdown for everybody, and I appreciate it. So thank you everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode.